guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is the first time you guys are seeing my face, then hello, my name is Brittany and I upload every single Sunday. Well, I try to. If you are not already subscribed, I would absolutely love it if you guys just hit the subscribe button down below to get notified when I have a new video out. I would really appreciate it. But today's video is going to be a story time video, which I'm super excited about because I don't think I've done a story time video in a while. Yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into the story time. I actually filmed this twice last night, and honestly this might be a lengthier video because I just cannot figure out how to shut up. Essentially, like, I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet, but probably won't happen. So you might need a snack or at least a drink or something with this video, but let's just go. Let's just get started. So the story begins in the summer of 2015. So I met this guy last summer. We worked together downtown at this bar. He actually had like a really good friend that worked there with him as well. So we all worked on one side of the bar. We weren't actually bartending. We worked at like the concession side, basically, where we sold food. I remember introducing myself to him and it was like super formal because like typical awkward Brittany, but I like went up and I was like, I shook his hand. I was like, hey, what's your name? And he's like, we'll name him Anthony. So he's like, hey, I'm Anthony. I'm like, oh, I'm Brittany. So we worked pretty much every single weekend together, and then if there was like a big concert on a weekday, we would generally be there for those as well. And honestly, I'm a super awkward person. I mean, come on guys, like when you really think about it, like I sit in my room alone and I talk to a camera, like I'm talking to you guys, and I'm totally comfortable with that. But you put me in like a real social situation, I'm just like hi, you know, like So I really like didn't try to converse, also because I turn bright red, like red as a cherry, around anyone, but like especially around like cute boys. So yeah, I honestly was just kind of like stay away from me, but also like hi. Does that even make sense? Like oh my god. So yeah, Anthony and I and his friend, we all worked together on that side, and there was kind of like a general flirtatious vibe sometimes. Like he would intentionally try to scare me because I'm just like a super jumpy person, and then we would like whip each other like with towels, or we'd throw things at each other, just joking around. But I of course counted it as flirting. I was like I mean, I took it as something. Obviously it might have been nothing, so that's to each its own, I guess. And I do remember also that his friend asked me for my Snapchat. So his friend and I had each other's Snapchats and we could view each other's stories and stuff, but I didn't have Anthony's Snapchat, which is like, I really just wanted his, but I was like, well, I mean, they're friends, so maybe we'll get there, you know? So summer comes to an end and August comes around and he actually had to go back to school. So he ended up leaving. I didn't have Anthony's Snapchat or his phone number, so I was just like, oh, you know, like kind of sad that like it was kind of over, and I was like, damn. And also I need to say this, like it is so important that you guys know this before we get any further into the story, in case I seem like psychotic or anything, because it's possible. I am somebody who like, it is so extremely rare that I find a guy that I genuinely like. Guys, like sometimes like I'm really weird, I totally know this, I'm strange, but it is what it is. Guys can say something one minute and be like, oh, but like if guys overdo it or they say something just weird, I will instantly be turned off, and I'm just like no. It's very rare that I actually just like genuinely like somebody, and it only happens maybe once a year, or not at all. Most times like not at all. So it's like finding a rare Pokemon, which I couldn't name one because I don't fucking play Pokemon, but you catch my drift. It's just totally rare. So when I find a guy, you know, that I like, I'm attracted to, all that good stuff, he's checking off, you know, everything, I'm not creeped out by him, like of course I'm gonna be like attached, you know, I'm just like, hey, come back, you know. So anyways, continuing on. So I didn't have his Snapchat or his phone number yet, and September comes along, which is basically when everything happened, and September was a busy month. So I think it was actually back towards the beginning or the middle of September, but my good friend, she invited me to go with her to this housewarming party for these people that she knew, and I think I met a couple of them like once maybe. And again, Anthony's like best friend and I, we had each other's Snapchat so he could see, you know, when I posted. I had been posting on my story that evening while I was at this housewarming party, and of course I was snapping some of the people that were around me, and in the Snapchat story I saw that his friend had viewed it, and he like instantly messaged me on the app and was like, he named a couple of the people that I was with, like he knew them, and And I was like, oh, weird. And I don't even think I had time to reply because one of the girls that was in the room with us that I guess they knew really well, I watched her, like she had left the room to go take a phone call or something. She came back in, like this was the first time I had ever met her. She comes up and she's like, Brittany, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, Anthony wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, what? I was like, hello? He was like, how do you know my friends? I was like, they're my friends too. So we were talking on the phone for like a minute or two, and the whole group had been actually talking about going to Vegas for New Year's. I'd been telling him, I was like, oh, you guys should come with us, that'd be really fun. And he was like, oh yeah, for sure, I'll totally go, like as long as you like promise to make out with me. And I was like, done. I was like, yeah, like of course, why not? We get off the phone and I actually I asked the girl, I was like, hey, can I see your phone really quick? And she's like, yeah, of course. And so I had the phone and I just took Anthony's number out of it because I didn't have it yet. So I was like, well, I should have this number, you know, like it's necessary. So I just took it and I started texting him. We texted for a while that evening, and then he actually texted me until I went to bed, like till I got home, because I was actually pretty far away from home. I had to drive all the way back 45 minutes or so. So he was just making sure I got home safe and said goodnight, and he was so cute. I hate him. So after that, he kind of like snapped me occasionally, like a little bit here and there, nothing crazy. And I remember one night I had been editing a video and I went over to sit in or like go to bed or something, and I saw my phone and I realized I had a missed FaceTime phone call from him, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't call him back because it was late and I was going to bed. I was like, ugh, no. And so completely kind of ignored it, but it just took me by surprise. I go to the Taylor Swift concert and then I am getting ready to leave for New York, and I was actually up at my friend's house up north, and she was packing. We were sitting on the floor and we were just talking, and in the middle of that I get a FaceTime phone call from Anthony, and I was like, oh, weird. So I answered it and we just had another like just cool conversation, casual conversation. He was being cute as ever, but whatever. So I get back from my New York trip. I get back on like a Tuesday, and then I went on my first Tinder date that Thursday, and I had like a really kind of just like unsettling makeout session with that guy from the Tinder date, and it just left me like feeling gross. Like I was just like, yeah. So like the next day rolls around and I was just like bored out of my mind. I was like, I cannot sit in this house. Like if I keep sitting here thinking about last night, I just felt ill. I was like, I need to get out of the house. But my friend was out of town and I have like 2 friends. So I was like, I need to get out of here. So I actually texted Anthony's friend because I thought Anthony was like at school, because again, he was in college. So I texted Anthony's friend and I was like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And he was like, oh, you should come drinking with us. And I was like, okay, but who's us? And he was like, oh, Anthony, me, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, like he's going, cool, sounds fun. So I ended up meeting them downtown at the bar area that we worked. And when I get there, I could already tell that I think they had pre-gamed before they actually went downtown. Obviously he had been drinking, and I get there and he's just like so enthusiastic, like so excited to see me. He's like, Brittany, and he holds his arms up and he just gives me like the biggest, like longest hug, and I'm like, living. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. But he was really clingy like most of the night, just like arms all around me, just like constantly like there, and I was like, okay, cool. So I walked up to this other guy that was in the group with them, and I was like, ah, you know these goons? And he was like, yeah, I'm Anthony's uncle. And I was like, oh. I was just kind of like embarrassed. I was like, okay, like wasn't expecting that. Even though he's an uncle, like it sounds like he might be old, but he's like literally not old at all. Like I think he's 26. I don't know. I think he's like somewhere around 25 or 26. So I met the uncle, and the uncle was also being kind of like clingy. Like, I don't think clingy is like the word, but he was being friendly like towards me, and that's fine. That's great. You know, he's nice. And I was like, oh, well, he's family, so that's cool. And so yeah, we go up to one of like the dancing club areas, and we're all just kind of hanging out. I think I had like 1 drink, and the uncle was being like nice. We were making like small talk, and Anthony was still being like clingy and like had his arms like all around me. And I remember him asking like he was like basically asking for confirmation that I liked him, and I was like, you know I like you, like would I be here? like if I didn't. But later in the evening, I wanted to go downstairs to see one of our good friends that was working that evening, and he was like, oh, you want to go see her? And I was like, yeah. And so he like takes me by the hand, we go downstairs, and we're just chilling. We had talked to the girl we knew like a little bit, and then I remember him mentioning something about making out, like, and I was like, there's a lot of people here, like, no. And I thought back to it, and I'm like, maybe I should have kissed him, and I'm like, nah. So after that, the group kind of was like, hey, where are you guys at? And I was like, oh, we're downstairs. So they all come down, we're all standing there hanging out, and they decide that they want to go over to another like local bar area. So I was like, okay, cool. So we leave to go there, and meanwhile, like, Anthony was like texting me like on his phone. He was like, are you coming? Are you coming? Like, please come with us, and like being like over the top with it. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming. Like, I have to, you know, get in my car, you know, I have to drive there. So we go get some drinks. We're standing at the bar, and the uncle actually offered to buy me a drink, which I had already ordered a drink, like they were in the process of making it, and I thought he was just gonna like pay for the drink that I had ordered, but turns out he was actually just like gonna buy me a whole other drink. So there was like confusion, communication problem there. So I had 2 drinks in my hand, and meanwhile I was still kind of like feeling ill from the night before. I just felt like really gross. Like, you can watch the Tinder video up above, down below, links everywhere. So I was just like really like felt unsettled about it. I was like, I cannot drink another ounce of alcohol. If I do, I actually for like 10 seconds thought that I was gonna throw up on the uncle, because I was like right next to him at the bar. I was like, I'm gonna throw up on you. Like, I just felt really like, I felt sick for a second, and I was like, and then the drinks came, and I was like, I can't do this. Did not end up drinking either of them. I felt really bad. So yeah, we went upstairs though to like the sitting area where there was like a bunch of chairs and tables, and I actually just I sat at the end of the table because I was like, oh, this leaves options open. Well, the good friend that's on my right, I was hoping, like, obviously I was like planning for Anthony to sit over here next to me, but the uncle comes and sits down next to me, and then Anthony is like right over here. The uncle was talking to me about how he was in town, because he doesn't actually live where I live. He lives like a couple states away. So he was just in town for this wedding that was happening the following day on Saturday, and he like asked me like if I would like be interested in going with him, and I was like, I thought he was asking like sarcastically, like if you had heard the whole like context of how he asked, I thought he was just like kidding, and so I was just being sarcastic back. I was like, yeah, like of course, duh, like I don't know you, but sure, I'd attend your family's wedding, you know, like what? Turns out he was being serious, and after I had jokingly, you know, sarcastically said yes to going to this wedding, Anthony like immediately lifts his head up, and he's like looking at me confused, like, what? I asked you to go with me. And I was like, no, you didn't. Like, I obviously would have said yes to you, like seriously. He like puts his head back down, and his other friend is like trying to like console him, like jokingly. He was like, it's okay, she'll go with you, like, and I was like, duh. Yeah, so we were just kind of chatting, and then I think we all decided to finally leave. I was under the impression we were all just gonna go back to Anthony's house. I thought that was like still the plan. So the uncle, I think he offered to like ride with me, because I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't want to have to like constantly look at my phone while I'm driving, especially downtown. He offered to ride with me because he obviously knew where Anthony was staying, he knew where he lived, and I was under the impression the uncle was like staying with Anthony for, you know, the duration of his trip. The uncle was being kind of like flirty, like it was strange, because I was like, haven't you noticed that I'm like really into your nephew? I felt like it was pretty obvious. Yeah, so we actually get to Anthony's house, and we're sitting in like the front of his house or something for like not even a minute. Like, it wasn't long that we were sitting in there, but he had asked me for like my phone number. He gave me his phone, I think. What did he give me? I don't remember how it happened. I feel like he gave me his phone to like put, or maybe he took my phone. Fuck, I don't remember. Somehow we exchanged numbers, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna text you at this wedding tomorrow. And then I was like, oh god, were you serious? Like, weird. I was like, okay. But we get out of the car, and it turns out the friends were leaving, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just drop the uncle off, because I figured he was staying the night anyways. But I had already texted Anthony. I was like, hey, we're here. I had just gotten out of my car, but I wasn't sure if I should get back in and like leave. And Anthony comes out. I think he had texted me back, and he was like, who's we? And he comes out, and he's like at the front door, like he has his boxers and like a blanket over his shoulder, and he sees that uncle and I are just standing in the yard, you know, like just got here, like what's going on? So we go inside, and Anthony goes back to his room to lay down on the bed. Who's gonna pass up the opportunity to lay next to a cute boy? So I lay down on the bed next to him and we're like facing each other. It wasn't like, nothing weird happened. The uncle had like gone into the hallway. I think he got a phone call or something. We were laying in there and Anthony had offered me like the covers. I was like, no, stop. And he was like, what, why? And I was like, because I'm tired and I don't want to fall asleep. And he was like, oh, I'll take you back like in the morning. And I was like, no, like, no, I need to leave tonight. Like, I can't stay. Thank God I did. I was laying on the bed next to him, but my knees were kind of bent. So the uncle comes back into the room and he actually sits, like, there's plenty of room on the bed. And he's like, he sits like right up against my like back, like thighs. And they're talking about the wedding a little bit. And again, Anthony was just obviously really intoxicated. They start like kind of bickering and I'm like just sitting there silent, like, and it's dark in the room, like there's no lights on. So I'm just like, what is going on? Anthony's like, I'm not going to this wedding tomorrow. He just does not want to go. And the uncle's like, no, you're going. It's your family. I don't remember like how things shifted. They were like really like bickering there for a second. And then it goes silent. And then I was just like, I literally was like, what just happened? Like all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, Anthony's just like, you two happened. Get the fuck out of my house. And I was like, oh. Okay. So I got up off the bed and I put my shoes on. I walked out to the living room and the uncle wanted like a minute with him or whatever. I was like, okay. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what? It still like confuses me. I'm like, what the hell happened? He was so sweet and cute and adorable. And then he just went cold, like ice cold. We were leaving Anthony's house and I had just like walked outside, like maybe a minute from when everything had just happened. I'm walking outside, I'm on the lawn and I get a text message and he's like, I don't remember what he said, but he was like being rude. And one of the texts said, talk to you never. And I was like, wow, okay, good night, Anthony. Just figuring, you know, maybe, you know, he'll realize, he'll look at this in the morning and be like, wow, I was a dick. I should apologize. Turns out the uncle had withheld some information, which was the fact that he was not even staying at Anthony's house. He was actually staying in a town like one over from me, like it was like 10 minutes from me. And I was like, okay. So I had to drive the uncle all the way back, like 45 minutes back to like where he was staying, and he wasn't even really sure where he was staying. So I was like, are we just like driving around aimlessly? Like, where is this house? You know, like, can we, I need to go to bed. This has been a day. At one point in the car ride, we were talking, just like making small talk, just random conversation. He had asked like about pulling over and just like talking, you know, like getting to know each other. And I was like, I'm gonna have to pass tonight. I was like, what are you doing? You know, like it was just such a strange experience. I don't believe Anthony knows about my YouTube channel, but the uncle knows about my YouTube channel. So I don't know if either of them are gonna see this, but hey. So I finally get to the house that he's staying at and I'm sitting there like parked in the front of the driveway. I look over at him and he just kind of like looks at me, but it was like such a long stare and I was like, stop, like what are you doing? So, like I looked away like back towards like the street and I was like, all right, nice meeting you. And also I need to note that I was like going through a really weird time, like emotionally. I was having a really rough time. It started like back in August, like the middle of August, and really didn't like, I didn't start feeling better until about February of this year. So lasted for a while. I was really upset. Like I could not figure out what was wrong with me. I never went to a doctor, so I don't really know what to label it as. And I don't want to like be the person to like self-diagnose myself because I'm not a professional. I have no idea. But I was just really sad and I could not, I was like, I'm a pretty positive person. Like I can keep myself like happy, you know, like I don't really dwell on the negative so much anymore. And so it was like really strange. Like it just completely consumed me. I could not get myself out of the negative, pissy, just awful mood that I was always in. I was just so sad. And of course, like I had some like, you know, better days. Like I had good days and I had like really, really low days. Yeah, so the next morning after an entire commotion of Friday night happened, I woke up kind of expecting like some kind of like apology text message like, hey, sorry I was a total douchebag the night before. But of course, I mean, I expect too much from people and I woke up to nothing. And so I texted him first and I was like, hey, how are you feeling? Because I figured, oh, he's probably so hungover. I hate it when people do this. He had his read receipts on, so of course I would get the notification that he read the message, but he would never respond. So it just pissed me off, and I was so upset, and I was so frustrated because I really liked this guy. Like I said, it's so rare to find someone, so I was confused and I was like really disappointed. I was like, what the fuck? I remember that morning so clearly. I was so upset. I actually started crying. I was so frustrated. And I remember screaming like into my pillow. I was like, it just frustrated me, the fact that he was just not even acknowledging me. Like, he was reading the message and did not even have the audacity to like just text me back. Like, just fucking say, you know, leave me alone or whatever bullshit you needed to get out. But I got silence. So that Saturday I actually went over. I had already expressed my frustrations to my friend, and she had like a family barbecue going on that evening, so she invited me over, and I was like, yeah, that's great. I need to get out of the house. So I went over to her place, and we were just kind of joking around, talking, and we were still talking about everything. I was still just venting my frustrations, and I mentioned, you know, like, should I text him like again? And I'm not the person, like, I do not bombard people. Like, I'm not the person that is going to text you and text you and text you and text you until you reply. I'm not confrontational. Like, that's not me. And I felt really uncomfortable with the idea of like sending him another text, but I was like, fuck it, you know, I'm gonna do it anyways because this doesn't make any sense. And that's when I kind of like tried to ask him. I was like trying to get a reply. I was like, you know, you were being like really nasty last night, and you didn't even like apologize. Of course, I'm like sitting there at this like little family bonfire barbecue, and I'm like and so I look at my phone again, and he read it and then says nothing. And I was like, okay. I was so frustrated. I ended up leaving, and I was like, I'm just done. Like, I'm just gonna go to bed, like, whatever. And so I actually remember, because my friend, she lived like out in the country, so she was like 25 minutes away from where I was. So I drove back. It was a nice peaceful car ride, and then I was just so frustrated again. I started crying. Like, I ugly cried. Ugly cried to Story of My Life by One Direction. I don't have like an auxiliary cord in my car, so the radio, like, it came on and it was playing that song, and I was like and I think it was about halfway, or it was like, no, it was only like a fourth way through the song. My phone goes off, and I see that it's Anthony, and he literally just, it's like one word, it says sorry, and I just kept crying. And so I'm also like a very emotional person, guys. Like, I cannot help it. I cry about everything and anything. So I got home, and I was like getting ready to take all of my makeup off. I was just sitting on my bed, hadn't done anything yet, just laying there like and I get a text from Anthony, who was like, hey, what are you doing? We're all gonna go to this bar downtown, do you want to come with us? And I was like torn, but ultimately I was like, okay, yeah, like, I'm gonna go. And I don't know why I thought it was a good idea. Like, I cleaned myself up. I was honestly amazed at how fast I did that, because I ugly cried, guys. So I had to like fix my makeup really quick. I was like halfway there, and I just started feeling, I was like, as I got closer and closer, I just could feel it. I was like, oh, this is not good. I shouldn't do this. Like, I should turn around. Like, I'm just gonna go home. I ended up getting there, and also, like, as soon as I got closer to the door, I got so close, I was walking in, and I just felt it overwhelmingly. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, I need to go back, turn around, go away. Like, I should not be here. Like, everything about it in me, everything in me, I was like, no, 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 no. But my body, it was just like on autopilot, and I'm just like walking in there, and I walk in, and Anthony was like, Brittany, and it wasn't nearly as enthusiastic as the night before, but Anthony, his good friend, and then the uncle, and then we were all together, and it was an arcade bar, so we ended up playing, or they ended up playing a couple games. I didn't play anything. Uncle was hanging around me, so I was just kind of talking to the uncle. Anthony was I felt like he was kind of like ignoring me, and so it was just totally awkward. Like, definitely should not have gone. We didn't stay there very long. We kind of kept like making awkward eye contact, but ultimately it just felt like he was avoiding me, and I was like, this feels terrible. Like, it felt awful. But they ended up wanting to go to another bar not far from where we were, and we're walking out, and Anthony was like, are you coming? And I was like, yeah. Sure. So I drove over to the bar and we were all sitting there kind of talking, and it's like a little square fire pit. So the uncle and I were over here. Anthony was like the farthest away and the friend was like right there. They were all kind of making small talk about sports and whatever, and I was kind of just being silent. And the uncle was like the only one that I was like really talking to because like he was just right there. I do remember Anthony. I think he made a comment about how he didn't remember much from the night before, but he was still being like cold, like to me it felt like, and just kind of looked like he was pouting almost. So I just got to the point where I was just uncomfortable and I was like, I'm leaving. So I literally got up and I was like, bye, and I walked out and I left, and then I cried more on the way home. So Saturday consisted of a lot of tears. The next day comes around and I had talked to my aunt. I was talking to another really close friend. I actually met up for coffee and I was like, what do I do? Like, do I text him? Like, what do I say, you know? Like, it just, everything felt so off and I was just really confused, and I was afraid that he was getting the wrong idea about this uncle and I. That was not supposed, like, nothing happened. Like, nothing was supposed to appear to have happened. Like, it was strange. So ultimately I was just like, fine, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna text him one last time. I was like, hey, I had a lot of fun with you this weekend. It was like, it ended like really weird. I just want you to know that I'm really into you. And so he read it and then said nothing. So I was like, okay. But ultimately, I'm like really glad that I did that, because at least like, I was like, you know, the ball is in your court now. I have said my piece. I don't have to like sit here and be like, well, what if? But if I had said this, you know, like maybe I should have told him how I felt. Like I had told him, you know, I put it there. I was like, here you go. Have my feelings. It's like, at least I got my answer. Like, of course it sucked, but at least it was out there essentially. And like, honestly, I'm totally fine now. Like, I do not care anymore. That definitely like contributed to like my sadness. That did not help my situation, which is not his fault. Like, obviously he didn't know that. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but I was absent from YouTube for a while there in the fall. Like, it was a rough end of the year and start to the new year. So yeah, I mean, again, not his fault, totally personal stuff. Even though he was like a total dickhead, gonna be honest. Still wish him well. Like, that's fine, you know, whatever. I hope he's doing good. I hope everything is a-okay with him. But yeah, that is it for this story. I am so sorry if this was like so long. If you guys are still watching this, if you made it this far, leave me the middle finger emoji down below as like a fuck boys, you know, comment. So leave me the middle finger emoji if you guys made it this far, because I just want to see how long you guys could stand my chatter mouth. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If any of you guys have had similar situations, I'd love to hear it or talk to you about it. So leave me a comment down below, or you can message me on any social media you prefer. But I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.
I like the person I was before I met you.